My name is Jessie Fallon, and we'll be talking about the push for text complexity. The push for this is not something new. Education has been dipping in and out of the idea for years now, and each time we learn so much more about it. Now we know that text complexity is more than just the difficulty of the text. As you can see on the slide, we have our image of the three parts of text complexity: the quantitative, qualitative, and the reader and task. With this comes along the idea of readability. We have two quotes on the slide that differ a little bit. The first quote talks about the style of writing. This is basically saying that people can understand text written in an easier style, such as chronological order, than something more complex, such as something with flashbacks. The second quote talks about the author's purpose and the intended audience. This is basically saying that if a student understands why a text is written, they are more likely to have a deeper comprehension of this. Readability is the balance between the skills of the reader and of the actual text itself. Looking at the passage above, this is a great example of text complexity and readability because we're able to look at all three components. Quantitatively, the passage is written at above a 10th grade level, which is well above the average of an 8th grade level of most adults. Qualitative, there's many assumptions about your background knowledge. We assume that you know about National Geographic, as well as the play Hamlet and the famous prop of using a skull. Without this knowledge, a reader would have a hard time understanding the message the author is trying to convey. Then there is the basic task, the big idea of this passage. We have to stop and think to ourselves, is that possible? Could there really be more people alive now than have ever died ever? It kind of causes you to stop and think strategically about it. This passage is not simply hard because it's above grade level, or easy because I know every word. It is complex in its words, in its assumptions, and in its purpose. The Common Core Standards encourages teachers to figure out what text to use based on this information. Instead of just reading a teacher's manual word for word, the standards have teachers choose text appropriate for their students based on the student's knowledge, the background, their experience, their reading level, their motivation, and the actual task the teacher is giving. When matching readers with text in the English Language Arts classroom, there's a few things to look at. Previously, and still now, we use the Goldilocks rule. My school calls it just right. The students pick books that are not too easy, not too hard, but are just right for them. For those who are not familiar, basically kids pick out a book and they hold up a finger for each word they don't know. 1 word means the book's too easy, 2 to 3 words means it's just right for them, and 4 to 5 words means it's probably too hard. Now, I'll preface this slide by saying that the authors of my article do not think this strategy is horrible and should be gotten rid of completely, but it should definitely not be the only strategy we use. Here's the problems with this strategy. First of all, it's based upon oral reading, what the student can read aloud, not their comprehension. Also will be the difficulty of the text will be reduced over time. If a student enters my 3rd grade classroom at the beginning of the year reading a 1st grade level, and that student only chooses 1st grade reading level books, he will never be prepared for 4th grade. Also, this problem limits students' abilities. We as teachers will never know what a student is capable of if we limit them to just what they can do independently. Teachers need to be assisting and scaffolding students through their reading. Students should also be reading widely, a variety of levels and of different forms. On the slide, you can see images of many different forms of text that should be used in English Language Arts classroom, as well as other content areas. Things like novels, comics, newspapers, informational articles, web-based journals, blogs, social media, photographs, things like this. Teachers can model how to read and interpret these forms of literacy with questions such as, what's the author's message of this blog? What is the viewpoint of the journalist in the article? How did the photographer capture the feelings of the model? As well as the font and the wordplay in comics, articles, and other forms of written word. The struggle was a big part of my article. In order to improve reading, students need to struggle with their text. Oftentimes, teachers forget the struggle and give students texts that are too easy or just on their level. We need to push for the challenge, not to make the kids fail, but to make them try. Productive failure is giving the students a chance to read a harder text, struggle with it, have the teacher assist and help and give them strategies to use, and then ultimately the kids succeeding. The goal here is to be able to have the kids succeed with a challenge so they're able to do that without a teacher by their side. We should be preparing students for the demands of college, even at an early age. Evidence shows that students can sometimes learn more if taught with challenging text. This is not to say that we should throw 5th grade books in front of 1st graders or doctoral type journals in front of college freshmen. However, we should be giving the students a chance to work with text above their level with the help of a teacher. I wrote some words on the top of the slide to remind everyone about how important it is to be teaching, guiding, modeling, instructing, and scaffolding. The image on the slide is an example of how to use the text to learn. Teachers can model how to compare and contrast the text by filling in important ideas from 3 separate texts that would all be based on the same concept or idea. They can fill in what they've learned about the text, and finally what you learned from reading all of the text combined. Giving students a healthy diet of different forms of literacy and scaffolding those higher level literacies will leave students feeling confident and able to persevere and succeed when faced with a challenge.